This is the World Report of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, April 2012. Coming up, an apostles' ministry stretches across the nations of Africa as Elder Russell M. Nelson of the 12 carries the message of the church to an ever-increasing number of faithful members there. From Wellington with love, New Zealand Latter-day Saints have a bright idea, but the care packages they're sending to faraway villages take some thoughtful planning and a little something more.
It was a wonderful surprise, and it was what we were praying for and hoping for.
And a happy day arrives for members of the church in Guatemala as President Dieter F. Uchtdorf dedicates a new temple in Central America. But first, across the largest ocean on Earth, to the heart of Polynesia, and to one of the earliest outposts of the church in Soniatu, Samoa, on the island of Upolu. Here, where there are people who define generations of celebrated culture and preservation, there is a movement underway, beginning just beneath the surface, rooted literally in the rich soil of this island nation, tucked away in the South Pacific.
We are helping families, strengthen families through food production and nutrition.
It's a community-building, family-strengthening, nutrition-based outreach to be certain. Access to the goodness of the earth and all it can produce in a lush tropical climate like Samoa has always been one of the foundations of the country's heritage. But in an increasingly modernized world, even in remote locales like Samoa, advances in processed food imports have outweighed falling agricultural production over the last 20 years and has led to health complications for far too many. And in a region that once possessed one of the most admired balanced diets in the world.
The health issues that we're experiencing right now with diet issues is mainly diabetes. High blood pressure is another issue.
Operated by the church on the island's northern shore in Soniatu, Sam Williams is the director of the Bishop's Garden. Here, he oversees the operations of this 20-acre agriculture and learning center located within the island's rainforest interior. Staple root crops like taro, banana trees, vegetables, and other tropical fruits are grown, all rich in vitamins and nutrients, and can be developed and different variations tested for what works best in this unique climate. The spirit and message of the program is to share gardening and food preparation know-how with anyone who wants to expand their knowledge and ability, whether they are members or friends of the church. But to see the Bishop's Garden flourishing today is also to get a glimpse of how the area appeared nearly 100 years ago, when then Apostle David O. McKay, who would later become the 9th president of the church, pronounced an apostolic blessing on Soniatu in 1921. In that blessing, he said that the area would one day help people provide sufficient food for its people through their work and special skills, as adapted to local conditions, all for their health and well-being. Bring forward President McKay's blessing through the years, and what you'll find is a hands-on effort at full speed ahead, where students in schools and parents in the garden's workshop or volunteers on chapel grounds are able to come together, share the most successful aspects of a thriving, nutritious garden at their own homes, and provide for their families in ways they never thought possible. Later in our World Report broadcast, we'll introduce you to those whose lives have been fundamentally changed by this special purpose in Samoa.
It's trying and direct them to what we used to eat before and what we used to live on.
Elder Russell M. Nelson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles reflects on his remarkable tour that crisscrossed portions of the African continent in the fall of 2011.
As we have a population growing up of righteous people who love the Lord and keep His commandments, it'll make a difference in the whole population.
While in that region of the world, Elder Nelson journeyed to Malawi, where he dedicated the country to the preaching of the gospel.
It's like unlocking a door. Doors had been closed for long periods of time, have been opened so that the message of the gospel can bless the lives of the people.
Also during his travels, Elder Nelson met with civic leaders, missionaries, and church members while in Madagascar, Malawi, and Kenya, to name a few.
The work of the Lord in Africa started here in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And now it's spread to many nations. Africa is a large continent. It's a complex continent. There are more than 800 languages spoken here. But the blessings of the gospel are intended for all of God's children. And when he said to his apostles, "Go ye into all the world and teach and testify and baptize and do my work," that's a huge assignment.
I woke up early. I knew I might walk a long way because the roads were going to be closed down, and I was here waiting for him to come and talk to us, and it was really great.
While meeting with local leaders in Area 70s, Elder Nelson thanked them for the work they have done and the prophetic promise they are helping to fulfill.
I'm grateful to see the progress, but it's only the beginning.
The worldwide ministry of the 12 is also felt in South America, where Latter-day Saints in Argentina mark a special timeline for Elder D. Todd Christofferson during his latest visit in November 2011.
Our members here have made a great impression by their service and by their example. We have a tremendous reputation here, in part because of humanitarian service, but mostly just because of the kind of people that they know our members to be as they become acquainted with them.
46 years before, he was an elder with a somewhat different commitment, serving as a young missionary in the Argentina North Mission under the mission presidency of Elder Richard G. Scott, also now serving in the 12.
I've been here before. I think I understand something of the culture, served a mission here, all of that, but you still learn more. You still understand better each time, each occasion, each experience.
During his time in Argentina, Elder Christofferson was accompanied by Elder J.E. Jensen of the 70 as they each spoke in special missionary meetings, addressed the young single adults, and to the youth of the church in firesides, reaching more than 10,000 by special broadcast.
They're living the gospel. They have a sense of the covenants. Their families are growing up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, as the scripture says. Everything's going to turn out well when that's in place.
Elder Christofferson's overarching message in cities like Salta, Buenos Aires, and Corrientes counseled members to cultivate unity, a spirit of service, and above all, to remember President Monson's decree that decisions determine destiny.
This is a blessed land, and although the stone will fill the whole earth, it looks like it started rolling here.
In the southern hemisphere, there is a land so massive and its unbroken shoreline so long that it's perceived as both an island and a continent, all in one. Australia's uniqueness in the world has created a steady stream of immigrants for nearly 3 centuries, and among them today, there are more than 130,000 Latter-day Saints who call the land down under home. And what a home it is. To catch a glimpse of Sydney, Australia's largest city, is to see a kaleidoscope of cultural and ethnic influences that continue to shape the country to this day. As one of the fastest growing Christian faiths in Australia, the church seems to reflect the country's diversity wherever its people meet.
I love being a member and because of all the blessings it brings me.
It provides the smile on our faces. It provides friendship with amazing people.
Yeah, I guess the church in our lives gives us direction and purpose.
Clinical psychologist and PhD candidate Emily Kwok, musical theater performer Patrice Tapaki, and rugby star Will Hopoate all come from different backgrounds. And as their lives reflect their active faith in the church in Australia, they have each come to recognize its influence in the world around them.
It's just a wonderful thing, wonderful feeling to hear the vibrancy of a new testimony, to hear the experiences of an old testimony, to see the joy of someone coming into the waters of baptism. It's just a marvellous thing. And to see missionaries...
Area 70 Elder Terrence Vinson is an Australian and a convert to the church who has watched membership flourish in recent years. But its prominence today owes its place to a steady climb that has charted a course from a much earlier day.
Church is larger now, so many more people have members as neighbours or relatives. So the church is much better known these days than it was then. I think the general population of Sydney has become more aware of the church.
The presence of the church in Australia began with the arrival of missionaries to its famed harbour city in 1851. But it would be another 100 years before Australian Latter-day Saint converts would elect to remain in significant numbers in Australia rather than immigrate to North America. Ian Mackey is one of those who saw membership swell. A great-grandfather now, he was a young man and still in his 20s when he joined the church and raised his family here, and at a time in Australia when Latter-day Saints were far lesser known. But those days would see a sudden shift.
In 1960, the first stake was organised in Sydney, and the membership quickly went from something like 2,000 members to 20,000 members over a short period of time.
And 24 years later, Australians would see the first of 5 temples built, starting in Sydney.
I just can't describe the excitement and the feeling that we experienced then when President Kimball made that announcement and invited me to be chairman of the Temple Committee, which I regarded as a great honour and a wonderful, wonderful experience.
And among Australian Latter-day Saints, some wonderful experiences even find their way onto the front page. For star rugby player Will Hopoate, the rugged life of an athlete has met up with his desire to serve a full-time mission in Brisbane. His decision to postpone a promising professional career for a mission made headlines, but Will was not at a loss for words when he explained his motives to teammates and fans.
My purpose as a missionary is to invite others to come into Christ, and the way the gospel centered around families, I hope I can make people realize the importance and blessing of their own families.
What is it like to be a member of church in Sydney? It is a great blessing.
As a therapist, Emily Kwok has chosen a path to help others heal. As an entertainer, musical theater performer Patrice Tapaki shares her gifts to help others feel. Yet in their varied pursuits between profession and family, there is a common thread they share.
I know that when I'm able to help someone or do something that is benefiting someone else other than just myself or those immediate people around me, that I can be happier, and that you can see the good that service can do for others.
And then at the end you realise that you're the one who gets blessed more, even though you thought you were helping someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Straight ahead, from the Rockies to Latin America and beyond, more temples are planned and completed.
The building of temples continues uninterrupted, brothers and sisters. Today is my privilege to announce several new temples.
President Thomas S. Monson brought the news of new temple construction to the church on Saturday morning of General Conference last October. We begin by crossing the Atlantic to the City of Light, Paris, France. Land has been selected and early approvals granted in the western suburbs of Paris for the construction of a temple and gardens for public access. This will be the first temple in France and the 14th in Europe. South to the continent of Africa, the Kinshasa Democratic Republic of Congo Temple will be the first temple in this country and serve more than 23,000 members in the region. Presently, temple-going Latter-day Saints travel to the Johannesburg, South Africa Temple, more than 2,000 miles away. Further south to what will be the Durban, South Africa Temple. When the site is finalized, construction will begin for what will be the 5th temple on the African continent. With nearly 5 million people, Durban is South Africa's third largest city, behind Cape Town and Johannesburg. Back across the Atlantic to the northern edge of South America, the Barranquilla Columbia Temple will be the second temple in the country following the Bogota Columbia Temple, which was dedicated in 1999. Returning to the Mountain West and to the site of the Star Valley, Wyoming Temple. As the 79th temple in the U.S., the Star Valley, Wyoming Temple will be the first in the Cowboy State. 2 more temples are coming to Utah, but one location announced by President Monson comes to us in a way few could have predicted. Built in the 1880s and 90s, the Provo Tabernacle was extensively damaged by an accidental fire on December 17, 2010. After several months of contemplating the building's uncertain future, the church has elected to restore this historic meeting house.
After careful study, we've decided to rebuild it with full preservation and restoration of the exterior to become the second temple of the church in the city of Provo. The existing Provo temple is one of the busiest in the church, and a second temple there will facilitate the increasing numbers of faithful church members who are attending the temple from Provo and the surrounding communities.
And there is more temple construction underway in nearby Payson. On a blustery day last fall, community members turned out to welcome Elder Dallin H. Oaks of the 12, as he and other church leaders broke ground for the Payson, Utah Temple on October 8th. And the event was something of a homecoming for Elder Oaks.
I lived with my Harris grandparents on their farm adjoining the highway between Payson and Spring Lake. We can see the location of that farm. It is less than a half a mile from where I stand.
Rain could not dampen the spirits of the groundbreaking ceremony for the Sapporo, Japan Temple last October. Elder Gary E. Stevenson of the First Quorum of the 70 led the group of church and civic leaders. Japan's former Prime Minister Yukio Hatoyama attended the event and thanked the church for its humanitarian aid to Japan after last year's earthquake and tsunami. To Latin America, Elder David A. Bednar of the 12 travels to the site of the Fortaleza, Brazil Temple to lead the groundbreaking ceremonies held there on November 15th.
This temple will be a source of hope.
Esse templo será uma fonte de esperança,
of light,
de luz
and of faith in God,
e de fé em Deus,
to all who see it.
para todos aqui.
When the Fortaleza Brazil Temple is finished, it will serve as the 7th temple in the country and serve multiple stakes in the immediate and outlying areas. Fair conditions and sunny skies accompanied President Dieter F. Uchtdorf, second counselor in the first presidency of the church, and Elder Neil L. Anderson of the 12, as they traveled to Central America to dedicate the Quetzaltenango Guatemala Temple on December 11th. In a dramatically beautiful setting in the Quetzaltenango Valley of surrounding mountains and volcanoes, President Uchtdorf invited those in attendance to come forward and help set the ceremonial temple cornerstone.
That's it, I think. These youth are a solid foundation, definitely. Isn't that a wonderful symbolic act to have the youth build the temple in a literal way?
This is the first temple dedicated by President Uchtdorf and the second operating temple in Guatemala. The Quetzaltenango Guatemala Temple will serve nearly 60,000 Latter-day Saints living in this region of Central America. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir leaves the Christmas concert audience in awe and sets a new benchmark in televised holiday broadcasting for PBS.
To be involved in a program that lifts people's spirits up, especially when the year's been really tough for a lot of people.
Internationally known British actress Jane Seymour and acclaimed baritone Nathan Gunn reflected on the rare opportunity to share their artistic gifts at a much-needed time in the world. When the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and Orchestra at Temple Square unite their talents for the annual Christmas concert performed at the Conference Center last December in Salt Lake City, Utah.
I think it's the first time I've ever really done anything that was so well organized with volunteers. It gives it, honestly, a different feeling. Everybody who's here wants to be here.
And what they did together with the choir, orchestra, bells on Temple Square, and more than 100 dancers is nothing short of a holiday spectacular. As all the performers were told before the first night's dress rehearsal that the annual Christmas concert they were participating in has become the #1 holiday program on public broadcasting, reaching more than 4 million viewers every year. Whether by broadcast or live audience, this one-of-a-kind Christmas event is free for all. The medieval set design and costumes hark back to the days of the good King Wenceslaus, who, at Christmas time in Central Europe, went about ministering to the poor with the aid of just one servant. A servant, the story tells, who lost his will in the face of the harsh conditions until he was able to follow his king's footsteps in the snow and ultimately give of himself.
He saw the snowflakes descending like concourses of angels, winging their way down to watch over him and lead him safely along.
And the idea is to invite people to open up, in other words, to accept what's happened. And by reaching out to help someone else in their moment of need, they bring love and solution to themselves. And so, very much I think the spirit of Christmas is of getting out of your own issues and out of your own problems and just looking around and just saying, what can I uniquely do to help people around me that I love? And also maybe to help people that I don't even know that I feel I can touch and help.
Singer Nathan Gunn, who has traveled the world as a performer with his wife and family of 5 children in tow, offered memorable medleys of popular Christmas tunes and a spiritual rendition of Mighty Lord and King All Glorious from Christmas Oratorio by Bach, combining to retell the birth of Christ as recorded in the Gospel of Luke in the Holy Bible. In the glow of Christmas and days before the concert, and in that spirit of celebrating the life of Christ, President Henry B. Eyring announced the unveiling of the Life of Jesus Christ Bible videos during the special First Presidency Christmas Fireside on December 4th.
The objective in that effort has been to remain true to the scriptural text, like the scriptures, which these short films follow faithfully. They may seem to you quiet. Your faith and the Holy Ghost will create the emotion these world-changing events deserve.
Based on the King James Version of the Bible and designed as a free application for mobile devices, the individual films were produced at the church's Jerusalem movie set in Goshen, Utah. Each cinematic portion brings the teachings and ministry of Jesus Christ to life and allows users to see, hear, and read the most significant accounts of the Lord's life portrayed. To access the free application or to share the content with family or friends, log on to biblevideos.lds.org. Once there, you can see and forward to others a variety of films that retell the teachings and miracles of Christ, as written in the 4 Gospels of the Holy Bible. The church's outreach through online media continues with a groundbreaking effort called the Leadership Training Library to help develop the abilities of its lay ministry. Latter-day Saint congregations all around the world are led by individuals who volunteer their time to minister to the spiritual needs of local members. Now, help and support for these special callings are given in video form to download for the benefit of the worldwide church in 11 different languages. This information can be accessed on LDS.org through the Serving in the Church webpage. Straight ahead, the art form of interfaith respect, the shared values of religious liberty extolled by a visiting senior statesman, and coming to the aid of those in need, all in the news. 5 years of redevelopment come to a remarkable finish on March 22nd in the heart of Salt Lake City with the completion of the City Creek Center. Sponsored by the church, the combined planning of City Creek Center's residential, commercial, and retail components are situated next to Temple Square and the church's worldwide headquarters. It's designed to reflect the historic European example of an international city, wherein the economic center of city life is in close proximity to the worship centers of its people. Crossing bridges, that's how organizers described the largest traveling Islamic art exhibit ever assembled in the United States as it opened in late February on the campus of Brigham Young University. And with the enthusiastic participation of former university president, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland of the 12. Titled Beauty and Belief, the Islamic art on display features hundreds of works from dozens of countries and private collections, some pieces dating back to the 7th century. The exhibit is expected to invite greater understanding between Latter-day Saints and Muslim communities, as well as other faith groups, as it moves on to other venues in the Midwest and East Coast of the United States.
Please join me in welcoming Senator Joseph Lieberman to Brigham Young University.
Religious freedom in America has a friend in U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman. The 4-term senator from Connecticut and former vice presidential candidate arrived on the Provo campus of Brigham Young University last October to talk about how religion and the Constitution work together.
They go back to the founders of our country who wrote the Declaration and later the Constitution. And the words of our founders are relevant because they remind us from the beginning of America that we have been a nation that has defined itself not so much by our geographical borders as by our national values. And one of those values was and is a belief shared by most Americans that there is a God.
Senator Lieberman spoke of his visit with elders L. Tom Perry and Quentin L. Cook of the 12. As an observant tenet holder of the Jewish faith, Senator Lieberman's address focused on the freedom religion must have in a democratic society. The church continues its happy sponsorship of Operation Smile. Last fall, Operation Smile held a special event where H. David Burton of the presiding bishopric praised the group's medical volunteers who offer reconstructive surgery to children all over the world. The gathering was highlighted by the inspired singing of 16-year-old Chadleen Alberth Lacto, whose own life in the Philippines was transformed through Operation Smile's global outreach. Inspired by the service of Latter-day Saints she witnessed responding to the flooding in her country, the First Lady of Honduras came to Salt Lake City in November to tour Welfare Square. While in Utah, Rosa Elena Bonilla de Lobo met with senior church leaders and spoke of the church's global humanitarian outreach. The church celebrates 100 years of worldwide growth with hundreds of thousands of students over time in its enduring seminary and institute program. Latter-day Saints Seminary and Institute teaches the scriptures and doctrines of the church during the formative years of education. The anniversary was highlighted during a special youth fireside broadcast January 24th. Elder Boyd K. Packer, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and a former seminary teacher himself, expressed the church's commitment to the youth on the night of the special centennial broadcast.
We invest very much in our youth. We know of your worth and your potential.
We reach out to lift up others because this is what the Savior did and still does for us.
Be it a tornado, tsunami, earthquake, or just plain hardship, whenever pressing need strikes, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is widely known for its swift volunteer action to help those who suffer. Much of that mobile distribution ability is directly linked to the food and supplies that are gathered in what the church calls a bishop's storehouse.
These facilities are the core to what we do in terms of distributing the produce that many hours of volunteerism generate to bless those who are in need.
On January 26, 2012, President Dieter F. Uchtdorf, second counselor in the first presidency of the church, and presiding Bishop H. David Burton dedicated the new Bishop's Central Storehouse near Salt Lake City. The 570,000 square foot building is equipped to store more than 100 different foods and dry goods and serves as a central collection point for trucks designated to transport food and supplies whenever an urgent need arises.
The church does not do this for financial gain, nor do we accept money for the goods we distribute. We do not do it to be seen by men or to receive their praise. We do this because it is what the Savior has commanded us to do.
Still to come, they came up with a plan to help children they didn't even know. But it turns out that a follow-up idea was even better than their first. And returning to the people of Samoa, and a unique undertaking in part 2 of our special report. The community-wide impact of the Bishop's Garden in Sauniatu, Samoa is catching on. And for more than one reason. It's a precursor for healthier living.
To be able to look back and see, because in the old days, we have people living like over 100 years. But now in the modern days, I mean, lucky if you get like 70. So we're not introducing something new. It's trying and direct them to what we used to eat before and what we used to live on. And I think it's good.
Sam Teo is a bishop in Samoa who has seen the garden's concept of sharing quickly take hold. As families are able to take seedlings raised in shade houses and planter boxes like these on church properties, and then plant the seedlings on their own land for better health and food security.
When the members saw it, and I says, man, we can do that in our own backyard, you know, and I think they pick up that the spirit of what we're trying to introduce.
A short drive west from Sauniatu lives Mariana Leota, a widow whose grown children and grandchildren have recently known difficult times. The knowledge sharing of the Bishop's Garden and techniques she learned helped her eradicate plant diseases and pests in her garden at home and help bring more wholesome food to the table for those in her care.
We use everything from the garden to feed our family. And it has been really timely for us in helping us save money and help us prepare healthier food.
At the Leamosa Primary School, the students represent more than the promise of Samoa's future. According to the school's founder, Dr. Iono Fa'anafi, they also carry the traditions and heritage that bind together this country's identity, which begins from the ground up.
That's all we hope that these children will be able to do. Enjoy and make the most of this very beautiful country that we live in, and the freedom that we have.
The agriculture and nutrition concepts of the Bishop's Garden found their way to the school after a storm decimated its old garden and open-air kitchen. Volunteers with the Bishop's Garden helped to rebuild them both and pave a way for these young ones to learn, in a hands-on way, the life-sustaining agricultural and nutritionally sound practices that have helped preserve their people and culture for centuries.
You know, having a garden will be able to give them those two things: sense of security, peace of mind, you know, and then and hope for their children that they grow and live longer lives and be happier.
Cultivating the resources needed by any village or community can be a rewarding journey. And sometimes, in a setting like the Bishop's Garden, there are even occasions when personal inspiration has a role in transforming lives and bringing a new perspective.
One of the workshops that we had here, there was a particular young lady that attended that shared a really touching story and experience with us. And she said that she feels like working in the garden and everything that we had to offer could change the story of her life.
When Forbes magazine ranked New Zealand as the most friendly country on earth, it could have easily been considering the curious activities of some Latter-day Saints in Wellington.
See all these books, all these people working hard,
And the quality of what's being donated, I think, is just awesome.
As New Zealanders were topping Forbes' friendliest countries list in late 2011, members and friends of the church had been hard at work, joining together for a common cause, collecting and sorting through thousands of donated picture and learning books at this Latter-day Saint meeting house in Wellington, all destined for children living in a distant outpost.
It's really important that we stack these nice and flat so everything can be packed in on top.
Led by the charge of Eileen Mueller, word spread throughout the southern half of New Zealand, and more donations poured in. It turns out, New Zealanders have an abiding affection for their Pacific neighbors.
We were in a meeting with the Fijian High Commissioner, based in Wellington, discussing a donation of sewing machines, which was being made to Fiji the following week. And my state president asked her what needs there were in Fiji, and she said she was always buying books to take home to the children. And so we glanced at each other and a project was born, and a year later, here we are.
And where they are, exactly, is Bow Island, an isolated outer island of Fiji, a remote village community that once cradled Fiji's political and cultural identity in centuries past. But as times changed, Fiji's larger islands and cities like Nadi and Suva grew into tourism and commercial capitals with many different languages and nationalities, while outer islands like Bow have felt the separation. It's a reality members of the Church in New Zealand wanted to bridge as they paved the way and crossed the water to donate some 50,000 books for eager young minds, to learn everything from language and geography to science and horticulture. Local church leader Taniela Wakola grew up in Fiji and understands the value of such a gift to the children.
I was raised in the village. I was raised in a small outskirt community in Fiji. Library books for us was unheard of.
Here, as the children seem to carry all the rambunctious enthusiasm of Bow Island on their shoulders, their older brothers and sisters carry off the very first arrival, caseloads of books from the village dock and up to the schoolyard that overlooks the bay that surrounds their remote village.
It's wonderful. The most amazing feeling has been to see the children with the books in their hands, see their beautiful smiles, and hope that their education can take a leap forward in learning English language here in Fiji.
Whatever race, whatever color, whatever creed, whatever faith, you can still extend that arm of love that Jesus Christ teaches, as well as the teaching of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where the gospel unites everyone.
We had members of government involved, we had political figures involved, we had 2 local mayors involved who donated the use of their premises and libraries to collect the books. We had newspapers involved, church groups, many schools right across the lower half of the North Island in New Zealand.
Working with the Ministry of Education to divide 50,000 books among 82 different primary schools throughout the island chains of Fiji was a feat in and of itself, feeding the curious minds of young students a clear reward to see. But to offer a heartfelt thanks requires something more.
When I first heard this project, I thought to myself, if those contributors, if those who contributed towards this project, if those who initiated this project felt a prayer of appreciation, if they ever heard one prayer, I think that prayer was mine.
This has been the World Report of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, April 2012. To watch World Report online, you can log on to mormonnewsroom.org, or you can visit this website at videos.lds.org.